The President will be entering the House chamber very shortly.
Healthcare reform must begin with Medicare. Medicare is a binding commitment of a caring society. Leaders of both political parties have talked for years about strengthening Medicare. I urge the members of this new Congress to act this year. My budget will commit an additional $400 billion over the next decade to reform and strengthen Medicare.
Around 2002, a group of physicians and practices began to realize that the federal government had something up their sleeves. As the MMA was negotiated and the pricing mechanism of ASP, or average sales price, came to be the law of the land plus 6%, there were many of us that were by no means prepared to accept that in a fell swoop.
We didn't know at the time that that was going to be such a major undertaking. It was like an innocence amongst a bunch of colleagues when we got together, and fortunately I give a lot of credit to the West Clinic for having the courage to stand up and to have us all come in, and then we just sat down and wrote the paperwork, and we signed the paper in December of 2002 to form Community Oncology Alliance.
There was a great level of concern because we knew that they didn't understand what happened in community oncology because they thought it was all about the drugs. So we went to Washington, we read the bill, we went, oh, these guys have no idea what we do. So we began to engage.
What I want you to do today is remember, respectful, positive, but these are the people who work for you. So let's get the message out. Tell it like it is. Don't be bashful, don't be shy.
I think that we've done a pretty good job over the last 30 years of creating an oncology system that treats thousands of patients throughout the United States at the highest level of care in the world. And what we see now is this dismantling of the oncology system that we've created, and it's a step backwards. It's a very difficult time for a lot of people.
From its inception, COA realized that we needed to call greater attention to cancer care and the impact of Medicare reimbursement on cancer care.
Cancer treatment is being delayed, changed, and in cases even stopped every day in the United States. The lives of cancer patients hang in the balance.
I can only imagine, Dr. Cobb, what it is like for you and stellar physicians like Dr. Drucker to tell patients that these life-saving treatments that used to be available are no longer available. It's a disgrace.
As this new reimbursement system came into play, we saw practices move and be merged into the hospital. We saw practices that were struggling financially. We saw practices that were literally closing their doors, especially in rural areas. So we had to up our advocacy game. Hi, I'm Ted O'Kahn, Co-Executive Director of the Community Oncology Alliance. We have one of the greatest forms of government in the world, where we elect officials to go to Washington to represent us. But we can't expect our elected representatives to guess what our interests are. We have to tell them. We're trying to do one simple thing. We're trying to preserve community cancer care.
The cuts are the wrong way to go, and I will do everything that I can to get my colleagues to resist these proposed cuts.
And I recognize what we cannot afford to let happen is for prescription drug coverage and cancer care to be in conflict.
And we didn't get it right on our Medicare reform bill, did we? And you can change that, and let me tell you how you are already. As of this morning, we now have around 200 senators and representatives on that letter. And I know for a fact that my office is one of the places they'd be calling to add their names. The phone's been ringing off the hook since you arrived in town.
But unless somebody is there knocking at their door and personally coming by, you can't get their attention because they're pulled in so many directions. While you're here, get to those people that can make those decisions. the Chairman Thomases, the ranking members, work those committees so they can pressure CMS, get as many people to sign letters as you possibly can, and do not give up until we get this problem fixed.
The story we kept telling over and over about the patient started to resonate. We started going from seeing aides to seeing the congressmen and women, seeing the senators. Instead of us seeking the media, all of a sudden, they started reaching out to us.
Cancer care is in crisis. This is the word from local oncologists concerned about Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement plans set up by the government.
We're saying don't cut Medicare. Why every year do we have to worry about this? I just want to be a doctor.
We shouldn't put cancer patients in the way of politics, and that's the problem that's happening right now.
As larger hospitals fight to expand or move, smaller clinics are struggling just to survive.
Those forced spending cuts sweeping through the federal government are forcing cancer clinics to turn away some patients. What's going on?
For the drugs that are underwater right now, if you continue to administer them in your office while you're losing money because the cost is so high, practices won't stay in business.
Joining me tonight, Rose Gerber. She's a director at the Community Oncology Alliance and a cancer survivor.
What we have to recognize as part of the care is the staff. It's the oncologists that take care of us. And the nurses, the doctors are there. That's part of your treatment.
This is a crisis now, and we're endangering the world's best cancer care delivery system.
Well, they were in the heat. It was a light moment, though, about a serious matter. Doctors, nurses, and patients broke out into dance. You see them here. They're on the roof of the Capitol Hill Hotel. The group says cuts in Medicare are endangering treatment for cancer patients. According to the Community Oncology Alliance, 84% of cancer patients use community practices. They say Medicare cuts have forced the practices to cut staff and service and facilities. So they're dancing, we assume, because it's making them feel better.
Yeah, well, it's going to bring awareness to it, too, because that'll get a lot of play on the internet. A lot of folks will be watching that video and hopefully reading what they're dancing about.
Why did 100 people, with me in front, put themselves out there by literally doing a dance that was choreographed in the heat, but it delivered an important message? We're here for cancer care. And it was one of the defining moments, not only in terms of getting exposure in the press, on the internet, but really solidifying what has become a family, and that's COA.
I always feel that this is my second family. If COA never existed, I would have been bought over by hospital way back in 2015. I've seen how powerful has COA become.
I think it's lost on probably 3/4 of community-based oncologists that without COA, and quite frankly, Ted Ocon, there would be no community oncology right now. None of the changes that have taken place would exist. We'd all be working for a hospital, providing worse care at a higher price.
We all face struggles with day-to-day patient care. And it was a colleague of mine, actually, that was within COA that told me that, hey, you should go and attend COA. In fact, that colleague is also a competitor. But in the world of community oncology, we don't see each other that way. We see each other as in a common goal of taking care of patients, and we go through the same struggles, whether it's working with policymakers, insurance companies, the local health communities. So that was, you don't find that in other organizations that are focused around the cancer experience.
Oncology care is a team sport. COA came together with a group of oncology physicians who saw a need. But part of that need that we see is to have the other members of our care team work with us.
The organization is quite diverse. You have clinicians, obviously, so you have our physicians, you have nurses, and so forth, but you also have business persons, you have practice administrators, and then you have those who are kind of a mix in between. So it's really good to have a lot of different programs that are offered.
I think the Community Oncology Alliance is always shifting to what community oncology needs to be successful. So initially, that was a physician-based organization, really to meet the need of leaders in community oncology practice. But it's grown to have several other important pillars.
There was a meeting between the board of directors, which was at that time all physicians. And one of the physicians, one of our key leaders who's since passed, he says, you know, if you really want something done, you need to involve the administrators or the managers of these teams. So we created at that time what was called the COA Administrators Network, acronym of CAN. We started with maybe 5-10 people. Today, we have 1,000 members.
So I was actually hired by COA to develop their patient advocacy program in 2010, and what was lacking from the organization was actual patients, cancer survivors. And as much as physicians know about patients because they treat patients, they're not actually a patient. They realized that they needed to really walk the talk, which is one of my favorite expressions, and they decided they needed to formalize an advocacy program.
Into 2015, we started the Pharmacy Association, myself and a bunch of other pharmacists, to pull in all people within the care of the patient to get their voice involved. Every president has had a mission that was important to them, that added a new facet to community oncology.
We don't just rest on our laurels. We are always looking for what's next. The board at COA recognized the importance of getting much more engaged in state policy a couple of years ago and challenged us to stand up a team and really build an entire program to support practices in state-level advocacy.
We're looking a little ahead now. We're saying, okay, we have to be proactive. We need to get stronger on state legislation. Let's put together teams that can work with practices within states to show them how do they reach out to their local congressional members and assemblymen? How do they teach them about the issues that are going on? Because most of them don't know what PBMs are, don't know what 340B is. So now it's become our local responsibility to educate our lawmakers, and it's making a huge change.
COA gets its direction from the needs of patients and the physicians who are members and on the board. And COA is also very good at pivoting when times change, when things change, when needs change, COA changes.
The last 20 years have really shown that community oncology can step up and tackle the challenges that it faces, as existential and big as they may be. And we have really built a world-class organization in COA that is waiting for practices and helping them every day. And because of the investment that the community has made in COA over the last 20 years, the next 20 years should be even brighter.
We don't like the status quo. We like to look at new, exciting, different ideas that enhances the quality of cancer care while making it more affordable. 20 years ago, we started out as a ragtag bunch of oncologists, administrators from independent community oncology practices, nurses, a couple of pharmacists, really not knowing what we were doing. And, you know, after 20 years, COA has become the recognized leader in cancer care. Look at who the media goes to when they want to ask a question about cancer care or write a story or do an investigative report. Look at who members of Congress and their staff come to. Look at even the White House over, 4 different administrations. It's COA. I'm Ted O'Kahn, the Executive Director of the Community Oncology Alliance.
I'm Dr. Mark Thompson.
My name is Dr. Kashyap Patel.
I am Dr. Deborah Patt.
My name is Nicholas Ferreros.
I'm the CEO of Pontchartrain Cancer Center.
I'm the Medical Director of Public Policy.
An Executive Vice President of Texas Oncology.
CEO of New York Cancer and Blood Specialists.
I'm a medical oncologist, and I am community oncology.
I am.
I am.
And I am community oncology.
And I am community oncology.